Movie starts with a hostage situation done by a group of criminals using alien tech and super armor. The group of thugs seem to have captured the mayor, but the police arrive quickly on the scene. The group of thugs then get hit by Superman, and as always he saves the mayor, the policeman, and the day. Cyborg and the Flash soon arrive to help Superman with the after-party cleanup, with Flash cracking a joke about how the league must think of him as some kind of a cleaning service. After that, Superman reveals that the crew of thugs had a mother box, which explains why there was so much chaos. Cyborg then says that he'll ask his dad for help to get more information on the mother box. Later on, Superman arrives and meets up with Lois Lane. Superman takes Lois to some kind of a lab to analyze the Kryptonian ship he arrived in and try to get more information on his homeland. Superman activates a Kryptonian recording using the DNA from his fingerprints. The recording is revealed to be of a historian from Krypton that starts talking about Kal's parents. Lois Lane takes notes. After that, Superman offers her a lift to the Daily Planet and Lois accepts, of course. When they arrive, Superman quickly changes to Clark Kent and goes to work too. Clark meets up with Lois in the planet and tells her that they have to cancel their planned trip because his parents are in town. He also says that talking about his parents is uncharted territory for him, but he wants Lois to meet them. Later at the lab, Cyborg, Dr. Silas Stone, and Superman get to analyze a piece from the suits the thugs were wearing at the City Hall incident. Superman then meets Dr. Henry Irons, who recently quit Lex Labs to work with Dr. Silas at Star Labs, which then reveals that the alloy that these suits are made from isn't like anything they ever saw. Superman then gets an idea and rushes in flight to see Lex Luthor and ask about if he had anything to do with this. But Lex says that as Superman can see, he's on house arrest and denies all accusations. Superman says they'll have a talk later and leaves in disappointment. Meanwhile, some astronauts seem to be working on a problem with a satellite up in space, when suddenly a portal opens and a meteor starts falling out of it. At the same time, Lex Luthor doesn't seem to be on house arrest after all, and arrives in disguise at LexCorp. He doesn't leave a stone unturned with the rudeness and reprimanding towards his employees, but then gets cut off by a live feed of the meteor that will soon be hitting the astronauts. The astronauts seem to have high hopes for Superman to come and save them, but it seems to be too late, and they all die. Luthor finds out about the whereabouts of the meteor when it landed, which seems to be underwater, and proceeds to plan about going to check it out. Meanwhile, Wonder Woman and Superman train together in a simulated room while talking about their aliases and Clark's relationship with Lois Lane, now that he and Diana aren't dating, and Diana leaves Clark in a dilemma when asked about why he doesn't reveal who he is to her. Lex checks the crash site underwater remotely only to find out Atlanteans already are there. They hear a sound and go to check it out, so Luthor orders his crew to go check the sound too. When suddenly from underneath the rubble a monster emerges and grabs the Atlanteans and tears them to pieces. He then rushes towards Lex's crew, destroys the submarine, and kills them. Meanwhile, the Justice League meet up and discuss the weekly updates on their typical superhero stuff, and Flash gets to talking about how he won't be able to come to next week's meeting because he's having a wedding rehearsal, and how his soon-to-be wife knows about his true identity, which sparks up Clark's fear of him not telling Lois he's Superman. He realizes that by not telling her, he's not protecting her, but in fact, maybe having a risk of losing her, but he's still undecided. Later that night, him and Lois meet and have dinner with the Kents. Everyone seems to be having fun except Lois. She starts to feel like she never knew Clark at all when his parents are telling her stories about him. Clark then says that he was raised like this, and no matter how much he tries, he feels stuck. Lois and Clark leave after dinner and have an entanglement about the vagueness in their relationship, and soon after she walks home alone. The next day, Lois goes to the Daily Planet when she suddenly meets her nosy friend that wants to hear all about her dinner with Clark's folks, but Lois doesn't tell her much because it didn't go well. On their way to the office, they run into Clark and he asks her out to dinner later that day, when suddenly he gets a call from the Justice League. Wonder Woman tells him that there's an alien situation happening nearby, but Clark prioritizes his dinner with Lois. Justice League arrives on site and starts handling the situation, but they soon fail as the alien takes most of them down. Lex arrives at the lab of his that seems to be experimenting on aliens while the League is getting their asses handed to them. However, the only one that seems to be winning is Clark in his dinner with Lois. He reveals to her that he's Superman. At first, she doesn't believe him, but then he takes off his glasses and boom, it hits her, and suddenly it all makes total sense. Lois' phone rings and is told that a monster is heading towards Metropolis, and she's needed to cover the story. Superman of course hears this and rushes to help, but leaves a note for Lois saying that he loves her. The League are still fighting the aliens, but they seem to be losing. Martian Manhunter sees the alien approaching to attack Batman, so he tries to intervene only to be thrown at a gas station. Batman goes to check on Cyborg and finds him torn apart to pieces. Wonder Woman then hits the beast and lassos him into submission, but the alien lifts a truck and throws it at her, almost killing her. Superman then arrives at the scene and the monster is revealed to be Doomsday. After all the armor has worn off, they both start fighting, but Doomsday seems to be a tough opponent. Luther is watching a live feed of the fight before he arrives at a lab revealing a super suit that he has been eager to use on a day like this. But meanwhile, the fight keeps going and Doomsday keeps wreaking havoc in the city. Superman tries to tie him up by some cables that got torn that used to hold a bridge, but the monster gets set loose and attacks a mother and her child, which then are saved by Superman. And before Superman flies away, the kid hugs him. Superman flies and grabs a boat from the river to throw at Doomsday, but it doesn't seem to be affecting him at all. Doomsday grabs Superman from his leg and starts swinging him around like a bat, then throws him at the helicopter that Lois and her crew were covering the story from. Superman lifts the helicopter to safety. Lois goes to check on him and he tells her that he has to save the city. He's its only hope. Once again, Doomsday jumps midair towards Superman, but he stops him and starts giving him a beating like the one he took earlier, but unfortunately, this doesn't last long. Doomsday flips Superman midair and starts slamming his head in. Superman tries to hit him back, but fails until he falls into the ground. Lex Luthor arrives on scene in his power suit and blasts his laser through Doomsday. He starts hitting back and tears the armor off of him. But before he can hurt Luthor, Superman saves him. Superman's suit is all torn up now and he seems so weak, but that doesn't stop him from fighting back. Fight continues and seems to be even for a while, but the tables flip quickly and Doomsday starts choking Superman with his own cape. Lois throws a rock at him to try and get him away from Clark with tears running down her cheeks, but there's only so much you can do. Doomsday starts rushing towards her. She then whispers, "I love you too, Clark." Clark hears this and gets back up to save her. He beats Doomsday to death but is shown to be stabbed by one of his spikes. Superman lays on Lois' lap and tells her he's the luckiest man to have her. Soup's cape is shown flapping around in the air while the city mourns. The next day, the city attends the funeral of Superman, with the Kents crying and the Justice League feeling like they failed him. Meanwhile, Doomsday seems to be taken to Star Labs for examination, where suddenly the vessel which got Superman to Earth gets activated and flies away. Lois seems to be mourning, but her friend Kath tries to comfort her, but they get cut off by news that Superman has awakened out of his grave and flown away into space. This has been a sad classic story about how Superman died at the hand of Doomsday. If you're a fan of Superman, you definitely have seen the panel with his cape flying in the air with blood on it. But the story luckily doesn't end here. Can't wait to continue telling you guys what happens next soon. Well, this brings us to the end of today's video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel to get more videos like this one. Your support helps us grow. And tell me what you think about this film. Are you a fan of Superman? Was this an accurate portrayal of the character, and which is your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of them. And if you're watching till now, thank you. I'll see you in another video soon.